Hey everyone, Cynics here. Shoo those ghosts and goblins away because it is yet again time for International Self-Portrait Day. So while I start blasting through some sketching in the background, I'll give you all the quick reminder. November 1st is the annual day to take a moment and create a self-portrait. It can be a quick sketch, a full painting, whatever you want it to be. But I highly encourage you to partake in the fun and make a self-portrait. Even if you miss the day, just do one anyway. They are a great memento for looking back on your art journey each year. Personally, I was very close to actually just drawing myself as a Genshin Impact character, but I contained those evil thoughts and went for something more standard. As I look at this sketch, I think one thing that I'm noticing is how much looser I tend to be with my sketching process now. Since I know I'll be painting things, I really just focus on simple lines and indicators for the placement of everything. Keeping it super loose and constantly shifting things around in position lets me focus much more on hitting the lightness in the overall proportions instead of in the details. I definitely found myself overworking this first sketch a bit, so that's always a good indicator that you should just do another one. Don't drag it out. Especially now that I'm warmed up more, I can go into a second sketch with a built-up level of confidence and really just let it flow out in a much more relaxed way. I was mostly undecided on how stylized to be this year. My only real goal was to just make anything that looked better than Ahmed Aldori's dinosaur portrait of me from earlier in the year. It's tough. Anyway, I also like to use these self-portraits as a time to reflect back on the past year. And what an exciting year it's been. Oh, 2020, what would we be without you? I'm at least happy to say that my overall anxiety issues have actually been fine despite it all. YouTube has also been going well. Still need to build into a more productive routine, but analytics have been going up. Apparently, my second largest country viewership is now from the Philippines. So, ¿cómo está? I want to take a moment to just quickly apologize for all of the many times I've made jokes about the food pictures on the Jollibee's menu. I mean, come on, but it's fine. I'm over it. I won't say anything ever again, not about the hot dog pancakes or anything else. We'll just move on. Back to the drawing, I like this second sketch much more than the first. It has more exciting negative shapes along the silhouette and just captures what I was going for in a more flowing way. Nothing drastically new with the painting process. I'm still going to make a deep orange lighten layer above the line art and merge those together to give the lines a nice hue. Then bring out a mid-tone background and start blocking in those big color shapes. I am definitely going to use the airbrush a bit more than in the past to really add some gradation to those base colors, as well as blending together some of the crazier color shapes I'll be making. And oh, how I will be making lots of color shapes. There's two main things to keep in mind with this whole color shape process. One is to try to pick the color that you feel in an impressionistic sense, rather than aiming for some hyper color picker style accuracy. Two is to try to make sure each of the shapes has good appeal, so lots of obtuse angles and simple, chunky shapes wherever possible. While that's underway, I think it's time to rant for a bit, so I would like to take a moment to address some of the bigger takeaways from 2020 so far. I feel like we're almost all guilty of letting ourselves get emotionally manipulated at many points throughout this year. It's a serious problem, and it's not really our fault. No matter where you fall on any political spectrum, there is huge amounts of money to be made off of the emotional manipulation of people. 24-hour news cycles, social media, there's just so much money wrapped up in making sure people engage with things. And the easiest way to do that is to constantly manipulate the emotions of the consumer. We even see this for video games and pop culture stuff, but it's really at its worst when it comes to politics. Obviously, the isolation and lack of exterior distractions is why I feel that this has become an even bigger issue this year. But it's always been looming in the background. The monetization of emotions is a genuine threat to the future of society. And that might sound crazy, but I just feel it building and building. The main issue is probably education. I don't feel like we educate children to understand a lot of things. Finances, salesmanship, but also just manipulation as a whole, which is kind of in those other ones. But the fact that people actually buy timeshares is proof enough that we aren't educated well enough when it comes to manipulation. But anyways, personally, I'm trying to really focus on myself anytime I notice that I'm letting my emotions be manipulated. And I recommend you all do the same. As artists, our observational skills are some of the most important tools we have, so try to be observant of everything and how it affects you. Manipulation can be particularly harmful if it reaches the point of dehumanization. If you don't know, dehumanization is just being able to see someone else as so much of a stranger and other that you don't even acknowledge them as fellow humans anymore. Usually it's conditioned in us as a byproduct of greed on some level. Sometimes it can be relatively harmless. Say you have a question for your favorite artist, so you send them an email. Of course, they're busy, so they're probably just gonna ignore it. But if you were to see them at a convention and ask them, chances are they would probably take time to answer you. It's much harder to ignore someone once you've humanized them. Sometimes dehumanization can be completely depraved, such as with murder, wars, slavery. I think it's worth noting that it's not racism that leads to someone dehumanizing someone else. It's dehumanization that actually leads to racism. And it's been used as a tool by people in power for as long as civilization has existed. It's a very convenient way to scapegoat problems onto others. And while it is still used like that on a large scale, it has also been scaled down to be used by just anyone out there looking for money or power. Anyway, there are a lot of huge issues that need to be dealt with in the world, but we need to first individually wade through the monetized smokescreen of emotional manipulation and dehumanization that plagues us all. Next time you're feeling like a huge chunk of the population is horrible because of something or other, just remember that all living things are bound together in one pure goal: productive survival and propagation. We know that that is what nature does. That is nature's programming. That's all it cares about. So stop letting people manipulate you into believing that not everyone wants that. Ooh, okay. Got carried away a bit with that rant, so let's get back to the painting. You might have noticed I'm not going as wild with the dry brush this year. Mostly I've just been using it to get rid of all of the lines from the sketch. Lines are always a great place to know where you can cut an edge with the brush and blend it out away from that edge. Sure, there's a bit of general blending here and there, but I'm trying to let those chunky shapes do most of the heavy lifting. I also find that rounder forms, such as the neck, are the best place to prove the concept that shapes are far more fun than simple gradients or boring bands of color. You have to really get dialed into shape design and make sure that each of the color shapes you make are not just repeating the shape next to them or creating too much chaos. It's weirdly become one of my favorite things to do in these types of portraits, especially on the neck. I find myself just always looking for that one good combination of shapes that will make everything work. Another thing you might have noticed, there is a heavy focus on warm shapes and cool shapes. Lots of yellows, pinks, and oranges on one side, with lots of blues and purples on the other side. This is, of course, exaggerated for fun, and if you're extra astute, you may have noticed that even the background is warmer on the cool side of the face and cooler on the warm side. Fun little gimmicks to make things pop. If you're wondering what I was thinking with the background, well, I was thinking of a bit of a floaty microbial atmosphere, something of a subtle reference to this year's obsession with airborne disease. I didn't really sell it as well as I could, but that was the thought at least. It's so strange to see my face like this without any facial hair, but I just feel more comfortable painting facial hair in after the skin tones are done. And maybe that's just because my beard isn't thick enough to do it the other way. It's definitely time to start adding that in though. So as I mentioned in my anatomy video on hair, it works pretty well when you build up just a bit of subtle desaturation and kind of grow things out progressively. So a little bit of grayish undertones and then a bit more saturation toward the hair color, and eventually you can start getting into the deepest and darkest colors of the facial hair. This technique seems to work best when I'm doing things in a more painterly way. It's a bit messy, but I feel better about this face already. I'm going to finish off the facial hair with a stylistic choice. Oftentimes, texture can be implied by just hints of it here and there. If I go around and add a few repeated strokes in select spots with various colors and tones, it should make the whole thing feel much more detailed. Moving along to the floofy hair up top, it's certainly gotten a little longer this year, but that just means extra floof and more curves to paint. As dumb as it sounds, the trick to painting brown hair is to not use too much brown. I'm using a lot of cooler grays for highlights and some greener grays for darker tones. It's a real balancing act though. Hair needs to feel reflective, so it's okay to bring in ambient colors a bit and let the hair get into some weirder hues. At this point, it feels like I'm ready to wrap things up, but anytime I have one side of a face in shadow like this, I just feel this urge inside, that horrible urge to add a crazy light effect. So I don't think I've done it on any recent self-portraits, so let's just go all in. On a new layer, I'm just going to pick a color close to white and carve some fun shapes into the dark side of the face. I want to avoid anything that is too line-like and really use the light to add new dimension to the forms while also making some cool shapes. Yes, everything is all about the shapes. The beard part is a bit tricky to be honest, so it took me a bit of time to figure out how to handle it, but I'm feeling pretty good about things. It's getting hyper dramatic. I added a bit of pink subsurface glowy effects to the edges of the lights on the skin, and for the hair, I really just went crazy and made tons of swooping shapes. It's lots of lines everywhere. I didn't want them to be too static though, so I tried to lead into the light with some glowing brownish or orangish colors. I think it worked pretty well. The last final touch I added was a bit of dust in the air for movement, as well as some cat hairs floating around, because this year wouldn't be complete without my wonderful, lovely cat Sochi. She's been the biggest joy during this pandemic, and I love her. Alright, that's going to wrap things up for this year's self-portrait. Now that it's done, I can just flip that light off and on, and that's kind of great. I love doing that. Anyway, I wanted to thank you all so much for watching. Please go on to make your own self-portrait today. It's fun, I promise. Finally, the biggest thank you is, of course, reserved for my Patreon supporters. Thank you all so much. See ya, everyone.